really interesting week myself. I do some volunteer mentoring through SCORE, and
Oh,
one of the
yeah.
guys I was mentoring did not like our interaction at all, and he hung up on me after about 5 minutes.
Oh,
Um, and then throughout the rest of the day and still today, I've been getting spam calls from health insurance companies who are calling to follow up on my request for health insurance. And he texted me, this mentee guy. He's like, "Hey, enjoy all the spam calls, bastard." Yeah.
what?
And then he wrote me an email this morning apologizing for all of it. Like, it's the weirdest. I mean, it is not the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me, but one of the things that has stood out as far as weirdness goes in the last couple weeks.
I'm also a mentor for SCORE.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, I just started though. So I
Oh,
don't
they.
have experiences like that yet.
Well, let me tell you, it really helps to record all your mentoring sessions because that guy, he threatened to report me to SCORE, but I recorded our whole interaction and I was nothing but courteous and kind and trying to help him, and nothing came of it, and he's banned from SCORE now.
Wow. Well,
But
you never know where people are coming from, what's going on in their lives. And, you know, um, I always say when people do things like that, it's just really more about them than it is about you. It says something about them, right? I mean, to go to that length to sign you up for insurance that you didn't want seems a little bit extreme.
no, I get that. And I do tend to bring out extremes in people. And I know that. Like, I'm a very polarizing person, not on purpose, but that's sort of what I attract. I
Okay.
People either really like me a lot or they end up hating me and suing me. I've been sued 6 times
Wow.
and I've settled or won every single time. It's never gone to court. But
Wow.
people really, I have an impact on people. And I know that. One of the reasons why I wanted to start this podcast, so I could talk about things like that, because subconsciously I am inviting that into my life. And I understand that.
Hmm.
And I believe that nothing is a coincidence either. So for me, I believe God has a hand in everything that happens. Some people call him a higher power, the universe. Everybody's got their own definition. And it truly doesn't matter to me how anyone defines that. But the fact remains, we all invite the things that are going on in our lives into our lives to a large extent.
Yeah,
And, that,
somehow we do. You're right.
and it's actually one of the reasons the premise of my show is actually vision with execution is reality. And the things that we invite into our lives, whether subconsciously or not, we're starting it in our heads. So if we start with positive visions and ideas, then we can much more easily create those positive things into reality.
Oh, for sure.
Anyway,
Yeah.
it's scientific. I didn't invent it. I just like talking about it.
Well, I'm right there with you on that belief. That's for sure.
So, Carrie, two of the things I always ask people on my show is, what is your vision for 2025, and then how are you going to execute on it? And I like actually the way that you and I met, because you're the second person of all time to have ever pitched me to be on my podcast, and the first guy to pitch me had, I don't think he ever watched an episode. He just liked pitching podcasts to be on them.
Okay.
But you're used to that kind of thing because of your marketing background. You're used to going in and pitching and creating a concept that hopefully resonates with the person that you're pitching your idea, your concept to, so that they'll have you on the show or write about you or do this or that. So as and by the way, we are recording this. I'm a very informal podcast host. So you look awesome, whether or not you have your glasses on or not.
I just noticed there was a bit of a glare, so I sometimes take them off for that purpose. But yes, and then I'm hoping the sound is okay.
Yep, sounds great.
Okay.
And I love just like being real and authentic and just having just conversations with people and just like diving straight in. Sometimes I'll introduce my show and just say something like this is the Vision with Execution show. But for this one, uh I'm going to use how we started because I think uh
Sure.
it's
Yeah.
real. I I I don't find any value or happiness in obfuscating or tricking or hiding the truth in any way, even though I do it. I find myself exaggerating and lying about things all the time. And so I really have to work on just being real and saying what I actually think and feel. And it invites other people to do the same.
Yeah, definitely.
So your background is in marketing, as is mine, but your story is unique. And the last time we talked, I remember we were talking about creating visions, and you do some mentoring, as do I,
Yes.
and you help people with, actually I don't know exactly what you do for your mentoring, because when you mentor through SCORE, they kind of have you sign up as a subject matter expert, I think, still.
Yeah.
So what is your subject matter expertise in SCORE?
Well, once you say you're in marketing, everybody wants you to give the marketing juice, right?
Yep,
So
yep, that's what I found too.
there was a lot of that off the bat, but really, I've been through what many mid-career professionals are going through, and that is finding themselves in a job that they thought was going to give them everything they needed in life, but feeling, 10, 15 years into it, very kind of disappointed or vacant or like something's missing. And I found myself in that position. I worked for a Fortune 500 company, then a smaller private company that was in the franchise space. And, I just, one day you just start thinking, wow, is this really the recipe for success? And can I do this for 20, 25, 30 more years? You know, Retirement's far off for many people. And it's difficult. So I started my own business a few years ago, and it's been successful. The way I did it was, I think maybe not that unique, but I learned a lot about the way to do it. If you want to leave your 9 to 5 job, you have to put certain things in place, and that can start years in advance. So, building a financial cushion is super important. You don't just leave the job and not have a paycheck.
I
So,
love that. Really quickly, I want to point out something. A lot of times when I'm mentoring people through SCORE, they they are in sort of a transition phase where they're thinking to themselves, "Oh, I've got this great idea. I want to go for it."
yeah,
But they don't put any thought into how to transition from full-time work, providing for yourself, having a living, and also working on your side hustle. And I've told several people this point blank: don't quit your day job until you have some source of income coming from that side hustle.
yeah, super important. You know, I think, did I share with you about my story of when I realized the success formula that we've all been taught wasn't working for me when I was working at a Fortune 500 company, and I had 3 kids. I was a single mom living in Orange County, California, and I couldn't afford groceries. So I ended up going to a church that had like a food bank. And I just realized at that moment, something's really broken here. I'm making money. I had gotten one promotion. but I still wasn't making enough to support myself and my family. Um, and that's when I knew that I wasn't going to stay in this paradigm until I was 65 and wait to retire to spend more time with my kids. Here I was missing all their school events because I had to work. I was so worried that I would be laid off if I underperformed. And that's when I started picking up side businesses. And the first business I did was I was a mobile notary. And that was something I could do after hours, weekends, evenings. I could take documents to people's houses to get signed and stamped and send them back to the lender. And I figured out really quick that if I could stack 3 or 4 of those at a time on a Saturday, I could make a pretty good chunk of change.
That's really
And
cool. That's
yeah,
like the first Uber of anything.
right. Here's your documents, sign away. Um, so that was really, uh, it's not hard to become a mobile notary. It wasn't what I ultimately wanted to do. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to be a real estate investor at one point. So my next move was on top of that mobile notary business, I actually started Forex trading, right? So I was trading on currencies after hours. I set up all these automated rules to, get in, get out of the bids and things like that. So that wasn't as lucrative as a notary business. But what I found out about the notary business, it was also very cyclical. So you know how it goes. There's a refinance boom, and then everybody's signing loans. Everybody's redoing their loans, remortgaging their house, and then all of a sudden that goes quiet. So I quickly discerned that the mobile notary business was not my future. So what happened next is I saved up enough money, raised my kids. This was over years. And then I bought an apartment complex in another state and became a landlord.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. And then I had what you call cash flow or passive income. I
Yep.
hired a property manager, um, great guy to manage the property for me in my absence. And, you know, those are the two side hustles. I didn't know ultimately when I was doing either of those that I was going to end up leaving my job and starting my own marketing business, which is what I did 2 years ago. Um, and then, even when I started my own marketing business, I didn't know how successful that would become. And that led me into doing what I'm doing today, which is helping people do the same thing as I did, which is the mentoring with SCORE. I have my own coaching business now, and I'm trying to grow that and help more people because I think it's really important for everybody to have a side hustle,
I
especially
totally
now.
agree. Very much agree. I've actually, I think we may have talked about this a little bit last time, but I have taught both of my kids that it's entirely possible to be successful in life without ever going to college
Yeah.
if you know how to do certain things. And one of those things is you can learn certain skills that will help you no matter what you're doing. And one of those is learning how to sell. That's one of the things that you have to know how to do if you want to have a side hustle. And it's a teachable, coachable skill. Anybody can learn how to sell.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you agree with that or not, but that's what I teach my kids all the time. And additionally, I'll just say this one other thing because I know you want to say other stuff, but I
Oh,
teach my kids that there are 3 rules of money if you want to be wealthy and successful. The first one, never spend more than you make. The second one, always pay full tithing. And in our religion, that just means 10% of our income. But whatever that means for you and your beliefs, it's giving to charity pays off spiritually and financially. And the third rule of money is you do have to spend money to make money.
yep. Yep. That's true. Very true. And I think, today sales is some of the sales tactics we used years ago don't really resonate anymore. um, what I'm finding is sales go smoother when I'm trying to help somebody, genuinely help somebody, and coming from a place of wanting to show them how to reach their goals. So that's the way I sell mostly. What are your problems and how do we solve those problems? And let me walk with you down that path.
Yeah, I had one of my podcast guests describe it as a negotiation, actually, instead of
Mm,
a sale. Because in a negotiation, both sides have something that they want, but you can either help each other get what you want, or one side just tries to force the other side to get what one side wants. And they call it a win-win situation. It's been described that way. But in reality, we're all negotiating all over the place for all kinds of things all the time. So if you have that sort of as your mentality, like everything is negotiable, then it makes life much more smooth because you find out what people want and then you try and help get it for them, and it usually helps you get what you want at the same time. At least that's kind of how I look at negotiations is there's always something I want and there's always someone who can help me get it. I just have to figure out how I can help them get what they want in return.
exactly. Yeah, I do agree with that. In the paradigm of sales, it's a bit interesting because I know a lot of people are still doing a lot of cold outreach. I'd prefer to do a little bit warmer outreach. And that's why I feel like it's so important that you use platforms that you have at your disposal, like social media platforms, especially LinkedIn.
Oh
I'm in the
yeah.
B2B service area. My clients are in the B2B service area on the marketing side. So a lot of my business is built over there on LinkedIn. I also use Substack now, which has been really great for meeting people who aren't and I don't mean to bash anybody, but the influencer space is so um, compressed right now on places like Instagram. It's every time you log on to somewhere like that, TikTok, Instagram, it's an influencer and it's influencer and it's influencer. There's all this energy and it seems to really buzz people up. And actually what happens is that they start kind of short circuiting in their brain. They're not sure where to go. There's too many shiny objects to chase all at once. And that makes it really hard to get sales because I feel like to get sales, you have to be very focused on one person, one problem, and one solution. And it's difficult when there's such a charged environment with so many things, so many options every time you go on.
Yeah, so you're talking about niching down, it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a big principle for me as well. In everything, all the businesses that I'm in, I'm always trying to simplify processes and simplify products, simplify services, and figure out exactly who I'm trying to sell to as deeply as possible. And that's another principle that I find myself almost always having to mentor other side hustlers and entrepreneurs about because they think that their product or service is good for everybody until you start to ask them questions, and then they realize it's a lot more specialized and niche than they think, and they're afraid sometimes of excluding potential sales from their product. But what I've found, the 80-20 rule kind of applies. 80% of your best clients are going to come from 20% of
Yeah.
your efforts and your messaging. And so focusing and niching down is always beneficial. So yeah, I agree with you. I really do want to ask you though, what is your vision for 2025? because that's kind of the thrust of my show.
Yeah. So for 2025, I want to develop some more programs for people to come together and in a group, in a community format, to start to develop their side businesses or their business idea. Usually, a lot of times, side businesses will turn into their full-time business, and they can comfortably leave their regular job once they get enough confidence, enough experience, and some clients underway. I want to be able to help more people do that. So I'm looking at some business models where I'll have some group coaching going on, some challenges, things like that, to bring more people together so that they can kind of feed off of each other. It's different from one-on-one coaching because it brings so much more energy and ideas to everybody.
And is that something you want to do in person or also virtually?
Virtually. Yeah.
Okay, just
Yeah.
virtually or a hybrid?
Right now I'm just looking at virtually.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are you using any particular platform like school or something like that?
I use Go High Level.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I've heard of that.
Hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
School, SKOOL.com is just another community builder type that I it seems like the people I know use that platform the most. And that's probably just because that's the type of people I'm connected to. But
Yeah, I know a lot of people who also use School, and it's really built just for that. So, they have just the pieces there that you need. Um, the Go High Level has those pieces also, but a whole lot more. I also use a lot of automations in my business and in my coaching programs where I set up um, a lot of rules. And like I just got off of a call right now with a client, and I got an email to myself that I forgot all about was coming, but it was asking me how the meeting went. And, in that email, it has a little bit of, it has a radio button where I check, action required, no action required, and then I can put my comments and my notes about the meeting. So otherwise, I would have totally forgotten to do that. I would have just not
that's
gone into
cool.
the system to log all that information. It just came right to me, and right before our call, I just went in and did that. So
And is that a function of Go High Level as well? Or is
it
that different?
is, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I
So
promise this show is not sponsored by either Go High Level or school, but I always like talking about tools and things that people use day to day and how they use them. So that was perfect. I like how you mentioned that, and it you did kind of answer the next question I typically ask people, which is, well, given what your vision is to create that community, how are you going to execute on that? And you said, here's what I'm going to do. So
yeah, yeah.
I
I'm
love that.
everything takes more time than you think. You say, oh, just put up a community, but there's this whole back end world to it. It's like, oh, a community, but now you need artwork for the landing page of the community. You need, maybe a name and a logo, and maybe you need some starter comments and moderation, and then you need some members, and how you're going to go get those members. You have to have a campaign to get those. There's always just a ton of background stuff that goes into anything like this. So that's what I'm working on very actively, as a matter of fact.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I love how well you've got your vision and your plan developed, and I want to help support that. And that's one of the reasons why I've got this podcast is because I believe that the words we say out loud
Mm.
have an impact. And so when we say our goals and our visions and our plans out loud and other people are listening to them, we're kind of held accountable to that in a way. And
Yeah.
that's what's great about communities is when you're interacting with people, you can all lift each other up and help each other reach your goals. And I'm a recovering addict, and that was one of the things I had to learn about recovery is that I couldn't do it alone. I needed
Mhm.
a group of people who were suffering with the same thing, and we were all helping lift each other up while still struggling. And
Sure.
that dynamic works in all kinds of group settings, whether it's for entrepreneurship, single moms, pregnant moms, single dads, recovering addicts. It's just we're all wired for connection.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
think we lost a lot of connection during the pandemic times, and some people never got it back. And I'm one of those people. I never really got it back fully, which is why I decided to venture out into the community and do the volunteer work with SCORE because it'll get me connected again, and um, all the other work I do with my clients, that's something too, but that's not as much face to face as I'd like to be. So um, yeah, it's important to get connected. And like you said, say the rising tide raises all boats or whatever,
yep,
buoys
yep.
all boats. It's sort of true when you're in a group with people who think differently than you, have different ideas, different angles, different life experience. It's very beneficial to some people. You
Yeah,
just have
no,
to,
I think it's beneficial to everybody for a lot of reasons, and that's actually one of the reasons why I continue to go to church every Sunday, because
yeah,
I get to be around people not only in my neighborhood, but we get to talk about deep, meaningful things, and that's the setting at church, right? You're talking
mhm,
about things that you believe very deeply with other people who live next to you that probably don't believe the same way you do about other things like politics or health or a vast array of things, parenting even. Uh,
sure,
but that's the great thing about getting out there and being connected is you just realize everybody's got such differences, but we have a lot more in common than we think at the same time.
absolutely. And that's why I like to travel. I've been to 36 countries. I lived in the Kingdom of Tonga. I was a Peace Corps volunteer. So people don't know that about me, but many years ago.
That's cool.
And every year I like to go somewhere else to a different culture, a different country. And last year I spent time in Dubai and Oman and Abu Dhabi.
Wow.
And I was there during Ramadan, which was a really interesting time to be there. But it felt so warm. Every night they have this big feast to break the fast. It's called iftar, and you go and you eat, and you spend hours just hanging out and eating and drinking and talking to people, and it's really nice. It's a great sense of community, very warm there. Yeah, so I really enjoyed it. Got to see new country, and Dubai is amazing because it's not just an Arab culture. They have people from all over the world in Dubai. I think out of the 12, how many is it? 12 million people that are there, only 1 million are indigenous Emirati. The rest are from somewhere else. So
Wow.
you see people from everywhere, everywhere you can imagine.
That's huge. That's a huge melting pot situation.
Yeah, yeah. And the nice part about it is I call it it's a mind your own business kind of place, right? Nobody's pointing fingers at somebody for being different. It's very accepting and open there. Yeah, so I really enjoyed that. It's unlike any place I've ever been.
That's fascinating. I don't have any aspirations to do very much traveling. I'm very much a homebody, but my wife would travel all the time if it were completely up to her. But yeah, I'll be out in DC next week actually. First
Oh,
time I'll
okay.
have ever been there, sadly.
Okay.
But
You're going to get to do some fun things, seeing the monuments and whatnot, or
no, no, no. It's a little bit more of a family trip,
okay.
and I'll be seeing my family, my siblings. My sister lives out near there, that area.
Oh,
So
great.
just a connecting experience. But
Wonderful.
you've been a really powerful guest for me
Oh,
today.
thank you.
I do have to wrap things up. This is kind of it's almost like a live show in that I do this all in one take. I'm my own editor, and I just try and get unscripted thoughts and connections with people. And you've been a
Sure.
champ. You
Thank
just
you.
you answered
Yeah.
everything, and you were super awesome. And you had some great thoughts. I learned some things, and that's probably the my favorite part of these shows is I learn things from other people. So
Oh, great. Yeah. I mean, if any of your mentees um, want to tap into any of my resources, I have a newsletter. It's just my name, carrieloranger.com is my website where people can find my newsletter. But that's where I talk about a lot of the things we discussed today about, focus and niche. And it's called a newsletter, but it's really a how-to guide on one topic that comes every Saturday and teaches people one specific thing. Sometimes I share inspirational stories in there, and there's always some learnings that can be taken from them. So that's my newsletter. It's called the 9 to Thrive newsletter, and you can easily be found on my website if you know anyone who likes that sort of thing.
well, cool. I'm gonna link to it in the description of the video when this goes live, and I'll put
Great.
it in the podcast description as well so people can find it.
Awesome. All right, Adam. Well, it's been a big pleasure. Thank you for having me on, and I'm glad I reached out.
Yeah, me too. And I'm just gonna end the show this time
Okay.
in my way. So this has been the Vision with Execution show. My name's Adam Torkelson. My guest has been Carrie Loranger, and she's got the 9 to Thrive newsletter that everybody should check out. Thanks so much, Carrie.